verses 7 and 8. Ask and it will be given you. Search and you will find. Knock and the door will be open for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches they find. And for everyone who knocks, the door will be open. So what are these two verses saying? What do you think? Ask. Okay, ask Jesus. Accept. No, that's interesting. Oh, accept. Accept and expect. Trust. What else do you hear? Just do it. Is there any action, if you look at these two verses, are there any actions required from us? Yes. What are the action words that are required from us? Ask, knock, okay. And then we listen to the other three verses. Is there anyone among you, if your child asks for bread, will give them a stone? Now, I was looking to see. There's a couple of jokesters, maybe. But really, if our child is hungry and they ask for something to eat, are we going to give them a rock? What are we going to give them? We're going to give them something to eat. Are we good at giving gifts and seeing needs? It's not in my scriptures, but what just jumped into my head. I was visiting Texas one year just before Thanksgiving. I was a guest preacher at a church, and they had a big church Thanksgiving meal, and I was stuffed. And I had about 4 hours before my next church to go preach at, and I was trying to figure out where could I go. And I looked at the map. We had maps back then. And looked at the map and said, okay, I have an aunt and uncle that's not far off my course, and I'll stop there. I didn't tell them I was coming. My aunt had been at the grocery store. What do you think was the first thing she said when she got home from the grocery store? You must be hungry. Sit. That's I really am not. I'm stuffed. You know, I just came from a Thanksgiving. Sit. And she started to pull out the food. Eat. You look thin. Eat. If a child or anyone is hungry, we feed them. We don't give them a rock. Well, what about if a child asks for a fish? What do we give them? Fish. Or chicken nuggets. But do we give them a snake? The next part I struggle just a little bit. If you then who are evil, I struggle with a little bit of this evil stuff. Do we like to think of ourselves as ever being evil? But then I look and go, but we're far from perfect. God is the perfect one. If you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? I think the confusing part, and I'll have people contact me, talk to me, and say, I asked, and I'm not hearing any answers. And I'm searching, and I don't see anything. And I knocked, and the door still seems to be locked. Do we ever struggle sometimes wondering? Do we ever sometimes have these requests to God that we're making and we're wondering, is God hearing? I was just kind of having some reflections on God, gifts from God, and gifts in general. And one of the things that was hitting me is sometimes we can't imagine anything bigger or better. I grew up in Midland, Michigan. Anyone know what Michigan, Midland, Michigan is famous for?
Don't we have the sugar beet factory there?
No.
I'm from Ypsilanti, Michigan,
Oh,
so you're a
Ypsilanti.
little bit further.
Dow Chemical.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone hear of this little chemical company? And so I grew up with Dow Chemical. We used to call it Uncle Dow. And most everyone I knew, their parents worked for Uncle Dow. My dad worked for Uncle Dow. My uncle worked for Dow. My brother worked for Dow. My sister-in-law worked for Dow. Anyone have any guess which high school I graduated from? H.H. Dow High School, Herbert Henry Dow High School. The best thing that I could think of growing up was I could work for Dow Chemical. I couldn't think of anything bigger than that. When I was looking for a college, the question we asked is, where does Dow recruit? Because I was planning to work at Dow. One of my favorite things, I decided not to put it in my sermon, and now I'm going to add it back in. And is I had applied for Dow Chemical in Freeport, Texas. I was living in Texas at the time, and ended up getting a job with Dow in California. And I got a forwarded letter that basically said, "You are not Dow material." And I so wanted to send the reply on letterhead saying, "I got this too late. I already worked for Dow, and I didn't realize I wasn't Dow material." But you know the funny thing? I wasn't Dow material. God had a different plan. And God had a bigger plan, better plan. It was while I was working for Dow that I answered the call to go into ministry and to go back to seminary. I do laugh, and the big boss called me into his office after I turned in my resignation. He was a United Methodist. So I figured he might be excited that I was going to become a United Methodist pastor. And his question was, do they offer counseling before you do this? Because I would be willing to pay for your counseling, because I'm not sure you're thinking right. I don't think he could think bigger and better. Sometimes we limit our dreams, and God has something better for us. And we wonder, why wasn't this prayer answered? I think there's other occasions where we resist gifts. Do we ever do that? I've been guilty of this. One of the memories that I was enjoying having was when I was a pastor up in Alaska. One of our couples asked me to go with them. They had a gift for her mother, and it was a lift chair, because they said she can't get out of her chair. And so we found this lift chair for her, and she is going to be so mad at us. And we're going to take it right after church, so are you available? Do you know why they took me with them? They said she is going to curse us out, so we're taking the preacher. And as long as the preacher is there, she won't curse us out. I still remember that day. She was so sweet and appreciative of her gift. But until I left. But I was riding with them, and that was their plan. And they said I was there to help carry the chair in, but that was not the case. Are there ever times God is trying to give us gifts and we're resistant? It's not the one that we wanted. We wanted something different. This isn't fancy enough, or this isn't what I imagined. And yet it's the gift for us. In some cases, it's just the wrong time. Well, what is a parsonage? Okay, church house. Anyone here ever live in a parsonage? And I can tell you, it can be a real answer to prayer, because there's been times that we would have struggled to find somewhere to live if there wasn't a church parsonage. When I went to seminary, I mentioned seminary, the district superintendent, who later became a bishop, part of what she told me was, there will be a parsonage. And so your family will have a place to live. So it can be an answer to prayer. We lived in parsonages for 20 years, and our prayer changed. That we wanted to buy our own house. We just thought it sounded novel to pick where we're going to live. You know, it just seemed like such a great thing. And to be able to start building some equity. And so at the church we were at, I asked for a housing allowance. That we could rent the parsonage and could do a housing allowance. I have been accused that whatever I want, I get. I guarantee you it's not true. And this was one of those cases. I tried everything I could to help convince the church that this was a good thing. And they considered it. And in the end, the answer was no. Now, we had been looking at houses and getting an idea as to what was out there, and saw several that we liked, that looked like it would fit what we were looking for. This was in Cottonwood, Arizona. The prices were really high. And after the no came, a little bit upset. Do we ever get disappointed when we're told no? Do we ever grumble a little bit? Anyone ever pout? I'm curious. Let's see your best pout face. I'm not saying, oh, I did see one. That was a good one. I can pout sometimes. And then the housing bubble burst. And I realized that the answer had been yes, we would have been ruined financially. That we would have been so upside down on that house. And honestly, I was trying to figure out, it probably would have been only recently that we could have sold the house for what it would have been paid for way back then. I also laugh, I had to count up a little bit. In the 14 years since then, how many houses do you think we've owned? 14 years? 5.
Wow.
Man, you know, we went from never having owned a house to having 5. And I have to admit, at one point we had 3 we were trying to sell. And then I was praying, please, Lord, take them away. You know, please, God. You know, there's so many other possibilities when we're not hearing a yes from God. When we're praying, when we're asking, we're searching, we're knocking. You know, there's so many other possibilities. Maybe we're not ready for it yet. Maybe there's more that we need to do to be ready. Have we ever wanted something too soon? Or perhaps it's just not good for us. As I think about the gifts that my parents gave, it always reflected our family values. There was nothing that they ever gave me that went against our family values. There was nothing they ever gave me that they didn't think I was ready for. There was nothing that they gave me that they thought would hurt me. Now, I hesitate on this. I'm one of those people from the time I was a little kid, I had a knife. And I haven't known life without it. Anyone else ever go walking into the courthouse and go, oh, I've got to run back out to the car and I need to leave my knife? Or going to the museums in D.C. and you have to bury your knife in the flower pot because you don't want to walk all the way back to the car, you know, but it wasn't until they thought I could handle it that I would ever get something that maybe could hurt me. Maybe it's something that's not good for us. And God is trying to point out to us that there's something better. As I hit this part of the message, I stopped and listened to a song that honestly shocked me that it's an old song now. And listen to the words. What song do you think that I stopped and listened to? I'll give you hints in a minute if you need. Okay. First hint. It was recorded 22 years ago. That was part of what shocked me. The next year, it was #1 on the Billboard. The next hint, I think will do it. It's a country song. Oh, that's a good guess. Imagine would be good. The dance would be good. Those are all good guesses. But the song that came to my mind and I was listening to, and some people aren't going to know it, is Unanswered Prayer. If you haven't heard it, I encourage you to listen to it. Again, it's an old song now. I remember when it came up. And I was looking a little bit more. Garth Brooks is the one who recorded it. There's some people going, we have no idea. 22 years ago. I wasn't even born yet. I saw that one. And Garth co-wrote it with Pat Alger and Larry Bastian. But the part, well, let me ask, what's the song about, Deb? Do you know?
Yeah, just be careful of what you pray for.
Yeah.
Be thankful, thank after the fact, realizing, thank God that He didn't answer my prayer.
There you go. And the song is about a guy who goes to a school reunion and he sees his old girlfriend. And the song talks about how he had prayed so hard, God, I'll never ask for anything else if she can be in my life. And then it talks about going to the school reunion and you get to thank God for unanswered prayers. I was reading about the song, and our band with this song, you might want to come up soon, and I'll just give you a heads up. I don't always remember. You're welcome. And he said, now, man, just the realization that what you have is the best for you, and the best you could ever do in your lifetime, it sure makes you sleep well at night. They were struggling to figure out what do you name this song, and he was walking down 18th Avenue, I don't remember which city, and was talking to one of his co-writers, Larry Bastian, who came up with a name and said it should be Unanswered Prayers. And he came up with the line, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. So how does our faith change? How does our faith life change if we embrace that God is blessing us? Not that God might bless us, or we think someday God will bless us. How does our faith change if we accept that God is blessing us right now in mighty ways, and that we don't have to try to convince God to bless us, and that God knows us, and that God loves us perfectly? Just in this upcoming week, I wonder how many blessings we can identify in our lives. And I wonder how we can help other people if we help them to know that God loves them already. And that God is blessing them too.